Okay. First thing is, I think I should turn the volume down a little bit on traffic. Um, Welcome all. I assume there was somebody here and left. Okay, that's all right. Uh, so, just getting started. Um, Flight from Chicago to Winnipeg. Um, and I'll be using some tools that you had seen in my one of my previous videos, but I'll be using those tools again, and briefly talking about them. Um, this is kind of a twofold flight to do some testing on those applications, but also to do a flight and if others are interested in tagging along, that would be great. If not, then that would be great too. I'm going to be doing the flight regardless. So we're flying from, as I said, from Chicago to Winnipeg, and flying in the 737 Max. We'll be talking about some differences between this plane and others, and the state of the sim in general. There'll be kind of a broad scope of conversation. Certainly, should chat get involved in this, that would be great. And we'll carry on whatever the conversation chat decides they want the conversation to be. Barring that, you'll have to suffer through my droning of what I think is going on. Okay. Um, we are going to probably get set for departure. Probably summer's in the neighborhood of, let me see what time we got here. So we got 1911 Zulu. Um, Central Time, for those that are wondering, is 2 o'clock, 2:11. Plan for departure is probably for summers around 2:40 is when we'll plan for departure. So we'll wait another 10 minutes or so, if there's more people interested in joining, and we'll start. We'll start getting set up. We'll get in the cockpit and start getting things ready to go. In the meantime, I'm going to go get another cup of coffee and find out what is that incessant noise of planes buzzing over top. Anyways, we're going to go get another coffee. understand why them planes fly right over top of the airport. Isn't that interesting? Okay. All right, let's get ourselves into the cockpit. Into the cockpit, I said. Right. Now, we are flying the 737 MAX. Couple of reasons. I kind of want to point out a couple of things about the plane and its functionality. And I also want for people to either in chat and or later on for comments to give their perspective. I have a perspective on this plane, and I think some of you have probably seen it and heard it already. But I'd like to see other people's perspectives of the plane. I'd also like to talk about some of the add-ons that are a part of this video, and I'm more testing add-ons just to see how they work and the functionality and are they doing what they're supposed to do, kind of a thing. So let's first talk about some of the things that I'm doing with, for example, um, uh, how I set my flights up and that kind of stuff. First thing is I generally use SimBrief to create a flight plan, and I don't think this is unlike most people do. I think a number of simmers would probably use the same concept. So I've created a flight plan in there, and I'm going to be using a couple of tools. There's 3 different tools that I'm going to be using. I'll try to limit the amount of discussion on each of those tools, because this isn't really about those tools, but it is about kind of showcasing the tools and letting the community see what these are and how they function. So I'll bring them over one at a time, give a brief conversation about each one of them, and then we'll get into the setting up and so forth. So the very first one is flight log. This is flight log. You can load your flight plan in manually, so you have that on your desktop or your flight plan folder. You can also load it in through SimBrief, and it's quite simple. Because I have it in SimBrief, I press on that. I get a warning window, or a window that comes up. It says with my SimBrief ID, so I won't show it to you, but I get that window, and I just say okay to that window, and it loads the flight plan in. And then we get this flight plan, and we see at the top here, it's now been loaded in. So that's the flight plan that we're flying. That's the plane we're flying. We got some telemetry stuff here that kind of shows what is happening in the plane. It's not necessary to use this stuff, but it is there for a general purpose, just to give you some general information should you not have any of the other stuff. One of the reasons why that's there is when we're flying in the sim, those panels are so far away, and sometimes for these old eyes, not as easily to see, what is the altitude, what is this, so I utilize this. Obviously, we're sitting in Toronto. Sorry, Toronto. That was close. Chicago. We'll talk about this in a few after we land and so forth. But we'll talk about this a little bit later. Our total flight hours is just that. So the idea here is I've been flying since FSX onto X-Plane 2020 and now 2024. And each time I've lost my log hours. Every time we transition from one sim to the next, we'll lose our log hours. So the concept of this is to keep your log hours. Once you fly from 2020 into 2024, it doesn't matter. They'll be joined together here. Okay. So that's the concept of this thing. So we've done what we can there with that program. Our next program that we're going to talk about is Flight Recorder. What is Flight Recorder? Well, Flight Recorder is basically the black box of flying, but it's a little deeper than that. So we connect to the sim, and it shows us telemetry and so forth, a more detailed version of telemetry, things like N1 for each of the engines, throttle position for each of the engines, fuel flow, pounds per hour of fuel flow for each of the engines, up to 4 engines. And it shows us, you know, did we have a stall? Did we have an overspeed? It tells us where we are heading, gears down, flaps are up, and so forth and so forth. Okay. So when we hit record, it begins to record the information. It records it every second of information. There are 28 or 29 bits of information that are being recorded, and that recording of the information can be played back later on. So for example, if we come here and we pick on that flight, we load the data in, and this is a flight that was flown, and that is the data. Every second of that flight, the data is recorded. What was the N1? What is the fuel flow? Was there a stall warning? Was there an engine flameout? What was the heading? What was the bank angle? What was the pitch? What was, you know, and so forth. And the list of information goes on and on and on and on. And you can play through this. You can hit the play button and just kind of go through it. One of the reasons for this is should you all of a sudden have a situation at, you know, at 45 minutes into the flight, you can go back here and go, okay, well, I know it was, I'll just pick 80 minutes into the flight. And we can see the statistics of the aircraft. Let me pull that all the way open. So you can see what was the statistics of the aircraft at this given at these given junctures, right? So the fuel flow was 1900 on both right and left engines, so they were both flowing properly, right? The throttle positions are both set at 73, so one of the throttles didn't come back or go forward or so forth and that sort of stuff. N1 was at 78. So you can see the entire situation of the plane, what the plane was doing at that given moment. One of the things that I use this for is if I have, let's say a stall, you know, a stick shaker, whatever. Well, I want to try to understand why did that happen and what was the resulting factors leading up to why that happened. That's what this does. Okay. The final piece of this puzzle is the analyzer. What is the analyzer? The analyzer is a system that analyzes all of the data and compares it to norms of data and says, this was the state of the aircraft. So for example, you can see the gear is still up and I'm 977 feet, right? The gear is still up and I'm 1,068, the gear is still up. So if we look at this, what do we get out of this? What we get out of this is that I didn't put the gear down soon enough, right? And this is an overwhelming thing that happens to me fairly often when I fly. And I look at this data to see, can I improve, right? And so you can see the same thing with the flaps. What was the condition of the flap? Now, it's reporting this data every second. So it is reporting a large set of data. The other thing is you have kind of a recommendations, right? So what are you fundamentally doing that you should be doing differently? Well, one of the things is lower the gear at 1500 AGL above ground level, right? So I needed to lower the gear sooner, and that's what it told me further up there. It told me that my gear was still up, the landing gear was still up, and I was 1,000 feet above the ground. And I should be doing that at 1500 AGL. I should also reduce my speed on a regular basis. I should be reducing my speed before I use the next set of flaps. In other words, I am generally putting my flaps down, going too fast. And adjust the rotation speed to 145 knots for optimal takeoff, right? So my takeoff is here, and I'm not following the rotation properly. Okay, so that's what this application in general is. Now we're going to close this off and we're going to come back to the front view and we're going to hit start record. Now start recording does exactly what you might think it does. It starts recording every second of data throughout. Okay. When we hit the stop record, then of course it does exactly what it says. It stops the recording. This is kind of like the flight data recorder in the aircraft. You know, you put the flight data recorder on and it starts recording data. The only difference between this is it does not overwrite itself. right? So I'm given to understand that normal flight data recorders would overwrite themselves. They just keep on overwriting. Before you start concerning yourself about disk space and that kind of stuff, the files are enormously small in comparison. So when we looked at that one flight, I think that was a 3 hour flight, and the data was 2 meg or something like that. So it's not a lot of data. Anyways, so let me pull that aside. And the third and final piece of software that we're going to talk about is Gatekeeper Pro. So Gatekeeper Pro is just that. It helps you, the pilot, with the one thing for me that's always been a bit of a nuisance for me, and that is taxiing. How do I taxi? And when I land, where am I going to park? Where's the parking spot? So what we do here is a similar function as we load the flight plan. So we just load it in, and now we have the flight plan loaded in, and we can see it. This is the given flight plan. The bluish line isn't really it's not intended to give a detailed view, such as Navigraph, of the entire flight, the SID, the star, the airways, all. It's not intended for that. What it is actually intended for is to let me turn off some of these things and follow. It's to kind of give you a general overview of where are you flying. Okay, so we're flying Chicago to Winnipeg, and this is the general overview of that flight. Okay, the other thing, let me just zoom in a little bit. So we can see certain functions, right? So let's say I'm over there and I want to snap back to the center view, right? So that's what this is doing. This is snapping us back. But most importantly, we are here. We are going to push back, and we're going to follow the green line all the way along until we get to the runway. Right? We're taking off 22 left. We're parked at gate 23, and that's what we're doing, right? So we can see this is how we get there. Now you're going to see some of these lines are kind of a little weird, and like in general, I would have thought that this thing would have come down to here and gone this way, but maybe it doesn't, and maybe there's a valid reason behind it. The logic of how this works is it uses a database of all of the segmented lines on the airfield, and with those segmented lines of the airfield, it picks its best taxi route to get to where it's going. Notice on the graphic, you see these planes, and note that it follows that. But also note that it goes up here and comes back down. And again, you can do that in your taxi. I will not. I will just be going straight across. But my guess is there's some segmented lines in here that are not quite right, and that's why it's come up that. This taxi path is not there to teach you or to show you what is the right way of taxiing. It is only there to give you the general idea of where you're going to taxi and how are you going to get to the runway, right? In further iterations, this is now in beta testing. And further iterations, we hope to clean up some of this stuff. But really, we're kind of held hostage by Microsoft's data that we pull, and the segmentation of that data. But we will endeavor to hopefully clean it up. So the other and final piece of the puzzle is on arrival. When we look at arrival, we say, okay, there is our arrival. Right, we're going to be landing on 3-1. That's the projected based on SimBrief. We're going to come here, and we can pick the gates that we want to land at now, or we don't have to pick gates. We could just pick parking spots. I want to briefly touch on this. You note that there's only one gate here, And the reason for it is, again, segmented lines not connecting. There's only one gate at Winnipeg that is actually connected to the taxi grid. There's more gates, but there's only one that's connected, and we're held hostage by that. But I will endeavor to pick that gate because that is the one and only gate that's there. Now, I'll further talk about these applications once we get a little closer to the other end, because most of these are about the departure and the arrival. The stuff in between, not as much about that, with the exception of the flight recorder. Now comes the interesting part. I said we're going to be in the air at 240. We're not going to be in the air at 240 because, well, we got more stuff to do. All right, now let's go through this fairly quickly. Where's batteries? There we go. Battery and battery. Now, for those that are going to watch this and comment, I'm not doing this in the correct order. You are right. You are most right. I'm not a pilot, and so I don't necessarily do things in the right order. I am endeavoring to try to get better at this stuff, but you know, it's going to take me more than just a minute. Let me get the ground power on. Did I not put the ground power on? Maybe I did. Okay, so we're gonna go over here. Unlike the PMDG, we don't have their flight bag, we have this flight bags. So we have an application, SimBrief, we have that installed. And so because we have that installed, we can view our current flight. So there's our current flight that we're flying. We're going to import that into the sim. Okay. Now we're going to come down here and we're going to say okay to that window. Now, Kord. We'll request a plan. And we'll load it. So this function here, as you see, is very similar to PMDG. It's not exactly the same, but it's similar. Okay. I bring that up because the FMCs, whether you're flying a PMDG or you're flying a Sobos plane, an FMC is an FMC, right? So that hasn't really changed. So now we're going to come in here, and this is one of the windows that are slightly different. Okay, so we're going to look at here. We're going to get our information from SimBrief. Cost is 5. Now, 0 fuel weight. So I could just press on that to collect my 0 fuel weight. However, it's not. It isn't 99.7. The 0 fuel weight is actually 128.9. And so we want to always, for me, I want to come here and select the information from the plan itself. So 128.9. All right. We are going to go to 36,000. I want to show, for those people that don't know this, if we click on this, we can see our average winds and temperature right there, right? And for the later on, the temperature that we're going to need to get, this is what I do, because there is the temperature of 43. So I will talk about this a bit more as we go on. But average winds, 236 and 57. Right there. That's what that is. 236 and 57. Now, watch this not work because I have not done something in here. Reserve fuel. Let's go 3,000. 236. Yeah, there was something I need to do. Oops, I need to do in here. Is it in here? I don't think so. No, I don't think so. I'll come back to that. I know that there was something in here that I needed to do that I haven't done yet. So we'll continue on here. We'll go 43. Remember that temperature I told you about? We're going to go 43. We're going to use toga. And flaps are 5. And let's look at departure and arrival. So we know that we're departing on that. And look at this here. Okay, so we know that's right. And our arrival is 3-1. I think we've already been selected on 3-1, haven't we? No, maybe not. Here we go, 3-1. And Norp and yeah. Okay. Then we're going to go back to here. Then we're going to go back to here. And we're going to say that's good. And we're going to say, let's try this again. I'm struggling to try to remember what was causing that error. I had figured it out, but now you see it says 151, and yet my estimated takeoff is not 151. My estimated takeoff is indeed 145. You know, I wonder if this was what I needed to do. Weight and balance. Okay, so let's get this filled out. 141 passengers. Cargo is 77.55. Zero fuel weight is 128.9. 128.990. And the fuel is 17.1. 17104 to be precise. Okay. Now, I wonder if that's what it was. 236.57. Nope. Was it 057? I don't think so. Nope. Okay, well, I'm not going to spend too much time with that. There was something, and now I've forgotten what I needed to do. But I do need to come here and probably 146. So this is much closer now. It's actually 145.6. Oops. That's much closer. Okay. Now, we should, we have it. Oh, That's what I've done wrong. Yeah, that is what I've done wrong. I have forgotten to align my stuff. Now let's go back here and let's just take one quick peek at this and see that I can now put that information in. Yep, that's it. I didn't do the alignment. Okay, so we are crank this up to 36,000. I know that's where we're going, and I also recognize that this isn't generally how a pilot would do it, but we're going to do it this way anyways, because I'm going to forget a lot of this stuff, or I'm going to try not to, but I'm likely going to. I have got to figure out 5.75. That's pretty close. Well, wait a minute. It's pretty close. Okay. I think everything is pretty much ready. So what we're going to do is we're going to keep a quick eye on the flight data recorder system, and I'm going to watch as these numbers kind of climb and make sure. And I'll show you how that works. Likewise, we are going to watch our taxi instructions here. How do we taxi? How we go from our runway over to, from our gate over to our runway. What are the paths that we take to do that with? Okay, so we'll put that aside. We're going to get ready for pushback and start. And one of the things that I utilize is when I'm getting ready to push back and I'm using this, I first of all take the check mark out of follow, and because I take that out of follow, I then watch this and go, okay, now I can see I need to push back this way so I can taxi this way, and this will get us taxied out to the runway. Now, as I said before, there are a couple anomalies, and one of those anomalies are this little gizmachi right here. I don't know why it would do that, but it's probably, like I said, there's some segments in there that is causing that to happen. Okay. Chemistry rating. Okay, yeah, okay. So let's pull this back here and let's get started. I want to welcome. Looks like there's somebody in the stream now. Or there was. Okay. Okay. I need a few minutes here just to make sure I've got everything checked off and doing what I'm supposed to be doing. Getting ready for pushback. Put the pumps on. We'll put our APU on. We'll disconnect our ground, and we'll push back. I use the toolbar pushback utility. I think it's quite fabulous when it comes up. I've noticed that it lasts a little while. Sometimes I have to start it twice. I'm not sure that I understand why, but it doesn't matter. So, because I've been watching my Gatekeeper, and the neat thing about Gatekeeper is you can just have this on another monitor and just watch it. So you don't have to get out of the aircraft and look behind you and all that. You can watch this, right? So that's what I do with it. I kind of scroll in on it and I'll watch myself back up. So we'll do the pushback. We'll hit the brakes off. We're not going to hold. We're going to reverse. One of the things about the Gatekeeper that I don't care for is every now and again it does just that. It just shoots off to one direction or not or another, and I don't know why it does that, but it does. Is that just a me problem? It could be. So we'll start that first engine up, and I can see now that I could realistically be turning ever so slightly. Again, that's one of those things that allows me to see that? It just kind of allows me to predict where I should be, when I should be turning out. Engine spooling up. We're done with pushback, and it should be spooling up here. Oh, we got to start. Get the other one going, and we're gonna go. We're gonna start the taxing. So another thing, when I'm flying, I generally try to adhere to as much of rules and whatnot as I can. Now, I'm again, as I said before, I'm not a pilot. Yeah, I've never passed even my private license, so I'm just not. But I try to fly with a certain level of exactness where I can. And I appreciate that I cannot do it 100% exact, but I try it, you know, where I can. And why I bring that up is I watch my ground speed here. It's difficult for me in the sim to kind of track what is my ground speed, where am I, and so I use this and I watch my ground speed. So you could, if you had just this, you could also watch your ground speed. Now you can't actually watch. Sorry, take that back. You can't watch your ground speed. You watch your airspeed in this one. Okay. In this one, you could actually watch your ground speed and your airspeed simultaneously. But I use Gatekeeper Pro to kind of do that with. Okay, engines are started. Let me go up here and get everything, configured as they should be. We should have that. We will turn the packs on. We will put that to auto. And we'll turn that off. And that can go off as well. Okay. Now we begin our taxi. Brakes are off-ish, I think. And we'll get a little bit of throttle. And so I didn't show you this, but you can see now our fuel flow. You can see our AN1. And I'm rolling the engines up a little bit. We're at 4% throttle right now. And we're getting ready to roll. Hang on now. So we're attempting to get ready to roll. There we go. So you can see the throttles have come up to 24% to get it to roll. I don't think, maybe I'm wrong about this, but I don't think we should have that much throttle just to get the thing to start to roll. But maybe that is required. And you can see as I pull the throttle back, you can see it throttling back, right? You can also see my ground speed here, what my ground speed is. All right. So, in theory, I'm coming to the end of this taxiway and I shouldn't just cut across. In theory, what I should be doing is, let me turn this off. The little zigzag, that's what I should be doing, right? So you're gonna see me actually attempt to accomplish this little zigzaggy turn business. Each to their own. It's not required. You don't have to do it. But really, I mean, I would have just cut across, right? So just up here, you could just cut across to where that guy is. Now, I don't know how important any of these things are. Like if you look at this stuff, you just keep in mind that we're actually not necessarily following it to the letter of the law. This is not, Gatekeeper Pro is not so that it will take you to the letter of the law, as it were. It's just there to help you get from the gate to the runway and from the runway back to the gate, right? So that's all this is designed to do, just to help people do just that. It's always been a bit of a pain for me. I'm getting ready to land. Where am I going to park? How am I going to taxi there? Got to figure out the taxi route. And then, of course, I got to remember what is the taxi route. That's, for me, that's the bigger problem. I'll pull this. I'm going to leave this here for now as I go through the taxi. So you can see up here, it wants us to go into there somewhere, which we're not going to. In this case, we're going to exercise our right to just keep going straight, because ultimately that's what we should do. Again, I've said before, it probably has a segmented break here somewhere, and that's why it can't find this path and says, oh, you should go there. Starting to taxi a little quick. Slows down a bit. So we'll get ourselves configured. We've got our trim set. Putting the flaps down now. So just up here, we can see this little weird twist here. So we're just going to cut that corner like that. And again, it's kind of, so because of the segmented breaks and stuff like that, that I can see there, and it's not just Chicago, it's not just Winnipeg, it's every airport that has some of these anomalies in them. Some have more than others. I haven't flown in Europe a lot with this, but so I'm going to be doing some more testing in, around the world. I mean, I fly all over the place. So, but both Canada and the U.S., most of the airports have some of these anomalies built into them. Whether that's a Microsoft thing that they can do a better job, break the segments, does the database, can we update the database in such a way that maybe we can make it better? It's possible. Um, But we see here where we're turning here, our intended is to go, our intentions should be to go left, which we will. Now I'm flying in FSLTL's, Navigraph's FSLTL system. So you're going to maybe see some planes that are in my way that, they're just in the way. The unfortunate thing is that we can't stop them from doing what they're doing. We can stop ourselves doing what we're doing because there is nobody to control them. The only controller is us. So we see planes roaming around. We can pause and slow ourselves down, get off the taxiway, or we can just live with the fact that sometimes it isn't going to be right, and generally that's what I live with. I am trying to find a way to have the sim do a better job, or the application do a better job with um, traffic, and I'm trying to find a way to make sure that we can identify traffic. You know, Although we can generally see traffic, right? So it's not like we need to do a great deal with identifying traffic. We should be able to see it. But how do we um, do this so that we get some the realism of what we're doing, a closer facsimile of realism. And so you can see throughout the taxi, we've been taxiing along, and our route is kind of defined and laid out for us. We're going to get to the runway. We didn't need to use uh, a system, of charts and to try to figure out. I guess you could, um, but we have this that we can just map out our route and say, okay, that's how we're getting there. You could go into Little Nav or to, what am I trying to say? Navigraph. You could go into Navigraph, look up some charts, and kind of have charts in your mind. But the problem is, not every airport has got airport designators for each of their taxiways. You don't see them all. And the other problem that I have is my old eyes. I can't necessarily see what some of these actually say, right? And so because of that, it is a bit of a struggle for me. So we see here our first situation, which is directly in front of us. But we are going to turn, I think, before that. Yeah, we're gonna make a little zigzag here off to the right. You see here, a little turn off to the right, which is right here. So we'll make that turn. And we'll make this turn right here. And we're basically there. To me, it feels like that whole transition from the gate to the runway. First of all, I can look at the map and go, okay, that's the route that I'm going to take. That's how I'm going to get there, and it's controlled. I know what to expect, and the only thing I really need to watch for now is oncoming aircraft. Is there something in the way that I should find a way to get around them? What I normally do is I say, okay, there is an AI aircraft or a live aircraft there. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to get out of its way. So our runway is directly in front of us. Now we have this. What is this over here? That's what I was curious about. So this is our 22. That's our runway that we want. We look at the map. Oops. I keep clicking on the wrong thing. So that other runway is this one here, but this is our departure. So I'm going to click on that, and we're not going to need to see that anymore. So let's roll up on the runway. As I was saying before, and I'm trying to find a ways to get the aircraft showing on here, because it would be nice to see them on here, where they are. I'm struggling with trying to find a reliable method of getting them on there. I've found a way to get them on there, but it's not reliable. Okay, so you can see here all of our systems are up and running. Everything is working. So what we're going to do is we're going to stabilize the throttle, stabilize the engines at around somewhere around 40%, as I'm given. That's what we're supposed to do. In which case we're going to tow bed the thing, and we're going to let her rip down the runway. We do have a planned rotation speed, but I can't remember what it is. I'm going to look for it here. One moment. So down here, there we go. So V1, VR 135, V2 146. So we will try to rotate at the appropriate speed. Let's go and verify our set flaps. Yeah, our flaps are set. Okay. Here we go. You see the N1 is coming up. And the fuel flow is also coming up. Notice that it wasn't equal there for a second. Isn't that interesting? And here we go. And we'll see if I can't do a decent takeoff. I'm far from an expert at this, but let me see if I can do a relatively decent one. 90 knots. Continue. $135. Rotate. Nope, off the ground we come. I don't know why we got glide slope. Oh, I know why. I forgot some important setups here. Didn't I? Nope, got that done. Let me get this out of the way. I did not plan this out very well, did I? I need to turn around, don't I? So we'll turn on a heading 15. Gears up. I'm going to get warmed about this. That was not a terribly great controlled takeoff. In my mind, I missed a number of things, which I'll kind of brief on right now. So I should have had the situational awareness of what my departure was going to be, that I needed to turn around, turn the aircraft, and I should have had that predetermined and set. I didn't. So that's number one. Number two, I should have, I should have, when I rotated out, I should have realized that I was going to make these turns, and I should have had my heading set for those turns to begin with. And also, I don't know why, but there's the magenta line. Okay. I was just going to say, I don't know why I'm not seeing the magenta line. But so I just should have had that done. I should have actually understood what my rotate speed was ahead of time. These are things that I generally like to do. I don't always do it, but I generally like to do it a certain way like this. And I didn't do it. So it was a little weird takeoff, which then caused me not to bring the gear up like I should have. It also caused me not to bring up my flaps like I should have incrementally. So I'm going to get some warning messages on the black box telling me, or the flight data recorder telling me, hey, you screwed that up again. And I'll be like, yeah, I know, I did. That's what I did, because that's what I did. All right. So each of the applications I was talking about, you can see here we left Chicago and we're en route. That's kind of way this works, right? The telemetry is there telling us, headings and all of that kind of stuff. So if you don't have the other software and you have just this, well, you can see some of that data here. The flight data recorder is doing just that. It's doing flight data recorder things. Notice that we turned off to pick up the magenta line. Heading hold is gone. We're on to the magenta line. So, but you can see, here's the N1. There's the throttle positions. There's the fuel flow. That's how much fuel we're using, and so forth and so on. We didn't have a stall. We didn't have an overspeed. That's showing us that information there. Okay, and finally the Gatekeeper Pro is kind of putting us on that line. It's not an exact science, as I said before. This is just generally telling us our route that we're taking and where we're going. We're going to Winnipeg. So you see here now, it switches over to taxi, waiting for ground. It says that waiting for ground because the minute the wheels touch the ground, based on what we've picked here as our gate that we want to go to, the minute the wheels touch the ground, there it's going to start to calculate our route. Never fear that, it might calculate you turning off sooner than you do turn off. Maybe you roll it a little longer. It's no problem. Wherever you roll out and wherever you stop to clean the aircraft up and get it ready for taxi to the gate, you hit refresh and it will recalculate your given route to that gate. So, let's say the system says you're supposed to turn off on Kilo and you don't turn off until Lima, let's say. Well, that's okay. You can just recalculate the route and it'll just recalculate your new taxi route. And you'll see a new set of green line drawing you a map to where you need to park. Okay. So through the flight part of this is kind of where I want to start. As I said earlier on in this whole thing, I kind of want to talk about the state of the flight simming community world as I see it. And I want everybody to appreciate who watches this. These are my views. These aren't necessarily the views of any others. But these are my views. As a long-term flight simmer, I've been flying flight simulation for quite some time. Maybe not as long as some of you, but certainly longer than some of you as well. And so I have some views on this. The state of our third-party aircraft, as opposed to the state of the in-sim aircraft, or the default aircraft, as it were. And how do I see that? From a programming perspective, I've seen a lot of things that causes me some concern. And as the community starts to develop more add-ons to kind of help add more realism to flight, I'm seeing some things that are a little alarming. I'm not going to get too technical because maybe not everybody's background is that, but I'm going to talk about a couple of aircraft And this is in no way to disparage these aircrafts or their developers. This is not that. This is actually more to show those developers from another developer's perspective where there are gaps. And I likewise welcome other developers to critique my add-ons so that I might get better with them. I'm open to saying, hey, your add-on is terrible. That's great. If it's terrible, now tell me what I need to do to make it not terrible. So, anyways, so let's talk about the big elephant in the room, as it were, PMDG. We'll start there because I find it one of the aircraft developers that has done things to the sim community that I'm not a huge fan of. And before you all say I'm an Airbus pilot and I don't care about Boeing, or it's not true. I have the PMDG 777. I have the PMDG 737, 700. I have these planes, purchased them, so I have them. So I'm not that guy. What I am is pointing out some of the things that we as a sim community should expect better of. The 737, 700 parked on the ground. In 2020, we never recognized this. We never saw this because we didn't have the opportunity to get out of the plane. However, in 2024, we do have the opportunity to get out of the plane. And if you are like me, parked at the gate, you can see these anomalies that aren't great. And I don't know why PMDG hasn't fixed them. One of them is if you park at a gate and before you go into the plane, and you're just walking around, don't generically go into the plane. Just as soon as you get the plane on the ground, look at the wings and the landing lights. There's no landing lights. You can see right through the wing. Small thing, yes, but we're paying upwards of $70-something for these things. I would expect something better than that. The next thing is look under the fuselage by the main gear. There's two large holes down there. And those two large holes, if you look at them, I can clearly see they didn't create an actual shell of the plane. And I use the shell of the plane, somebody can correct me in the comment section, but they didn't create an outer skin and an inner skin. Metal, whether it's thick metal or otherwise, there is a thickness to it. It is not wafer thin with only an outer section and no inner section. There's a thickness to it. It has an inner and an outer thickness. The PMDG 737-700 does not have that. There is not an inner and outer. And that is the reason why you get some of the bleed throughs and stuff like that you get. So the point, and there's more anomalies, but those are some of the more egregious ones for me that bother me, having purchased these planes. I just thought they would be better. And they're not. The Init builds A350. It's a good plane. I don't like the PMDG. I don't like the idea that as a simmer, I am locked in to have to use Navigraph. I don't like that. As a simmer, and because of the work that Microsoft has done and has given us this system, an updated cycles, updated charts, graphs, whatever you want to call it, it's given to us built into the sim, but the simming community can't use that stuff. We have to pay for Navigraph because those planes don't take advantage of that I'm aware of. They don't. And I just think that that's from a third-party content creator to not take advantage of something that already exists, but we force the community to continue to pay for something, even though they don't really need to, because all those charts exist here in the sim. Anyways, so those are some of the things. But even outside of all of that, 2020's default aircraft for Microsoft that they put into the sim, in my opinion, were abysmal. They were terrible. And the community can probably get behind that statement, hopefully. They weren't great. As a active simmer, expecting a plane to function a certain way, certain buttons and doodabbers to work, and they don't work. They're in op and all that kind of stuff. And I appreciate when 2020 came out, it was um, it was a very new revolutionary thing. And I'm not bashing Microsoft in any way, just like I'm not trying to bash the third party creators in any way. I'm pointing out some of the things from me, my perspective, how things should be better. Microsoft did a great job putting the whole package together, but I don't think they spent enough time getting those default aircraft ready to go. Where they rushed to reach or to get that certain deadline for 2020, maybe that was the cause of it. I don't know. But having said all of that, as we move forward into 2024, the planes are much better. This is a default 737 MAX 800 or 8, whatever you call it. Everything that I use on a regular basis is functional. It works well. It looks good. Yes, PMDG has a bunch of tweaks and the Init build guys and the Phoenix guys. I don't talk a lot about Phoenix because I actually don't own the A320 Phoenix aircraft. Not that I have anything against it. I don't fly the A320 a lot. It's rare that I do. When I do fly it, I fly the Airbus A320 fly by wires. I think it's a great aircraft, but I don't fly it a lot. So I haven't purchased it yet. I think I probably will, so I can weigh onto that aircraft as well. But anyways, I digress. Um, Planes in 2024 have had a huge improvement. They are just head and shoulders way and above, in my opinion, over the 2020 released default planes. The PMDG planes were fantastic in 2020. They really were. They filled a gap that 2020 just didn't have. They didn't have a good 737 airline. There just wasn't a good one out there, right? So PMDG did an amazing job. Again, I think they fell short when we got into 2024, and they just didn't do the work that was needed to make those planes have the same wow factor to them in 2024 as they did in 2020. Again, my perspective. Um, um, Note that I'm flying the MAX. I do fly the 737-700, a reasonable amount. I mean, it's not that I don't ever fly, but I don't fly it because it has features that the MAX doesn't have. I just fly it because I want to fly something a little different. I want to see the different displays. I like flying different planes. Okay. So where does that leave me in terms of where are we in the world of simulation? I believe that we are blessed and amazed, should be amazed by where we are. Even though I complain about certain aspects of PMDG or Ended Builds or any of the other developers, and I complain about Microsoft's default aircraft, even though I complain about all of that, the big picture in my mind is, for those that haven't, go back and look at Microsoft Flight Simulator 1. Look at 2, look at 3, look at 4, look at 5, look at 6, look at 7, 6, look at 2009, 2010. Look at those simulators. Look at the PMDG side of it. Look at the X-Plane side of it. Understand where we have come from and where we are. Where we are is absolutely amazing. All brought to us by a conglomeration of third-party developers, the simulators themselves being created by, whether it's X-Plane, prepared 3D, FSX, you name Microsoft's version of it now, 2020 and 2024. We are immensely blessed for what we actually have. Think about how we get to fly around in the world. Think about I do this quite often. Somebody will talk to me, or I'll see on the news about a particular airport, or I'll see somebody's YouTube video, being at this particular location, blah, blah, blah. And I just go fly there because I just find it fascinating. We can fly anywhere in the world And in 2020 anyways, or 2024 to say, we can fly virtually anywhere in the world. And for sure, at 1,500 above ground, 2,000 above ground, it looks pretty good. Yes, there are some generic buildings around the world, but would you rather have generic buildings or just have none? you know, my first X-plane experience in X-plane 11 um, was phenomenal in comparison to FSX because we had a big world compared to FSX. Natively, we had a big world. Yet, when I first logged into X-Plane, I was in the water, not realizing I needed to enable certain features and functions, and which I hadn't. But I was just sitting in the water at, I forget what airport it was that I was trying to go to. So I think the sim community is amazing. I think the developers in general, all of them are amazing. We are on the cusp of that I know of no other, and I use the word game. I understand it's a simulator, and for those that take this to that level of seriousness, I apologize for using the word game, but I'm using the word game for a very specific reason. No other game developer has made their game even remotely close to this level. Like, think about any of the games that you have played in on the computer. Whether it's I played World of Warcraft for a long time, and it's an extensive game. The world is huge, but still doesn't come remotely compare to this. This is the whole world, not a version of the world, but the whole world, right from the smallest little hole in somewhere is out in the desert area of Australia, all the way to the modern parts of New York and large cities across UK and in France, Germany. You pick a spot and it's there, right? There is no other game in the world that has that level of detail. Think about any driving game that you want to play, whether it's American Truck Simulator, any of these road course type things that you play. You're on controlled tracks, and that's what it is. You're on a controlled track. There's nothing else. American Truck Simulator or the Euro Truck Simulator, great games, um, but they cut out so much of the world. American Truck Simulator now, getting the vast majority of the U.S. states in there, and that's great. But each state only has a very small fraction of inaccurate parts of each city. And it's a great game. I'm not disparaging it. I have it and I drive on it too. I love it. Um, but it's not to this level. So we are just blessed by this amazing thing that we have, that is Microsoft Flight Simulation. And X-Plane 20, X-Plane 12 is pretty good. Um, I'm a Microsoft Flight Simulator guy, so sorry guys for all you X-Planers out there. I'm not saying it's a bad sim because it isn't. I'm more dedicated to the Microsoft flavor of it. I will say, when I had FSX and X-Plane, I found out about X-Plane. It was X-Plane 11 at the time. I immediately switched, and I was X-Plane all the way because it just was head and shoulders above FSX, in my opinion, because of scenery and accuracy and everything else. This is better. Anyways, so that's my opinion about the state of the sim. That's that. Some of the things that could be better, should be better. Um, and why do we have some of these anomalies? And we as the simming community, we accept them, right? If you're given a told this is a premium product, you're given the impression that this is a premium product, you should have the expectation it's a premium product. James Fuller, I think is his last name. I'm probably butchering your name, James. If you watch this video, I apologize. He did a video some time ago about the PMDG 737 evolution, where it was throughout the process between 2020 and into 2024. he talked about, and I'm gonna be careful not to say too much about it because I can't remember it entirely, but in general, he pointed out how this wasn't this was sold to us as a ground up build from the ground up. Hence, we had to spend more money. In my case, $35 more. I had to pay because I live in Canada, and that's nobody else's fault. It's mine. I live in Canada, but that's what I had to pay. Some $35 to get my plane upgraded to be on 2024. And he did a really good video. Look him up. I'll try to think. I'll try to remember in a comment section somewhere to give a link to his channel that you might see that video. I think he did an amazing job. I think he did a fair and accurate depiction of what his belief was about the sim. I don't know if this was the reason why he got kicked off of PMDG's forums. Um, it may have been. Maybe he had done something previously to get himself kicked off the forums. And I know he got kicked off the forums because he got the same message that I got when I got kicked off the PMDG forums. Um, and my messages on the forums were not derogatory in any way. Language wasn't bad language wasn't being used in my case. I suspect not in his case as well. We were silenced because the creators of PMDG didn't like the bad press that they were going to get out of that. The people that would read that's my belief. And so we were silenced. Our posts were deleted and removed from their forums. To me, that feels like that is a admission of guilt, but you take it for what you take it for. Okay, so let's talk about some more of the things where I see the simulator moving forward. What do I see the simulator doing moving forward? I very much like the fact that Microsoft has cloud-based a lot of the stuff. A lot of the stuff is streaming to us. In 2020, we needed to download some 130 gigs of data. Now, granted, that's shared or that's saved data usage daily, weekly, for sure. But it was 130 gigs of data that we had to download. Today, the 2024 flavor, I think, was 9 gigs initially. Have they added a few gigs along the way? Probably. I'm not sure that I recognize that. But I have to have some 350 gigs of data sitting on my hard drive for 2020 just so I can have the core of 2020 operational, as opposed to, what is it, 50 or 55 gigs or something like that for 2024. And so I like the direction that the simulator, Microsoft's simulator, is going. I can only predict that we'll have less and less footprint on our computers and more footprint on theirs, which I think for the simming community, I think that's great. I think game streaming, as it were, Steam does this a little bit, but game streaming, I think, is a function that Microsoft might think about utilizing. Now, does that come with a subscription based version of it? I hope not. But I can see an opportunity where that's what it could become, as opposed to what we have now: buy the game once and then own the game. But I think that as time goes by, I think this Black Shark AI system that they use for generating the world as a whole, I think that AI intelligence is only going to get better, and it is only going to improve upon the world that we see. Who knows what the next sim is? I mean, if you look at what Microsoft did with 2020 and then gravitating to 2024, does that mean we're getting a new sim in 2028? My personal opinion on that is I don't think so. And if we were, I would imagine we would start hearing something about it. Instead, we're not. So I don't think so. Will Microsoft make another simulator to add to this franchise? I'm guessing they will. I think it's been a fairly lucrative thing for them. Thinking about, the average cost of sim being somewhere in the neighborhood of $100 per sim. From what I'm told, or for what I'd seen some time ago, some 15 million users. $100 a pop. that's a fair chunk of change right there, you know. So do they recreate another one and get another $100 a copy times 15 million? If I were them, I would certainly would consider it. Um, so that's kind of where I see the state of the sim, you know, where it's at now and what I see kind of in the future. Um, I think that AI will be heavily involved in it, as it is in every aspect, good, bad, or otherwise. But I think that's inevitable. Um, yeah, so that's kind of where I wanted to kind of just have this little conversation about my personal opinions about this. These are not opinions. These aren't views held by, anybody else that I could say, hey, this person thinks this the same way that, or let me back that up, that I would say this person says the same thing or thinks the same way as I do. I know there's lots of other people that feel this way, but I don't want to speak for them. And so I speak from my opinions, my views, and only my opinions and my views. Um, could I find ways to critique and be critical of the Microsoft Flight Simulator, just like the X-Plane and this third-party add-on, my own add-ons for that matter? Of course I could. I think you can be critical. People can fall into a negative trap and say negative things about everything if you really, really want to. And I point out a couple of ones that I find quite egregious. For example, the PMDG 737 lineup being told this is the ground up and that's what we have to pay for it. I mean, Robert, if you watch this, you haven't and you won't, but if you do, please fix the holes in the fuselage. Please give us landing lights where there's supposed to be landing lights. I don't think that's too much to ask when you ask us to spend $75 US for these planes, or $60 US, or $80 US, whatever you ask. I don't think it's too much to ask. Put it on your plan to correct and fix. The other thing is, generally, developers I believe, are trying to create products that the sim community will use. And they're trying to do that to help and better the community. There's a bunch of free stuff out there. I think it's great. Sometimes misleading. I would challenge everybody, when you're looking at these free things on flightsim.to, please look at them with open eyes to understand what they are. Don't think that they're going to fix your stutters and your lag and all that, because they're not. You cannot put a piece of software in and fix the performance of your computer and magically get 20% better performance. It doesn't exist. You can improve performance by downgrading your visual experience. You can do that, but you don't need an add-on to do that. Turn your train level of detail down. Turn your sliders down. Train level of detail, object level of detail, turn them down. Switch from quality to, ultra performance. Likewise, understand, quality to ultra performance, they don't mean what lots of people think they mean. They think ultra performance means it's kind of like the best of the best. It isn't. Quality is one of the best settings you're going to set to give you the best visual representation of the sims you're going to get. Ultra performance means just that. You get the best performance, but you give up on the visual quality. So there's a lot of stuff out there. You can't find yourself in your i7 9700K processor, or whatever that number is. I'm not very versed in Intel. And go ahead and shove a 4090 or a 5090 in there and say, oh, no, I'm set. There's a little thing called main thread. Just so that those people understand a little bit, I will bring this up quickly. You can get this in your developer. If you turn your developer mode on, you can get this, and look for tutorials out there how to do that. But you can see here, this is the status or the status of my aircraft, what I'm doing, how I'm doing. So many people will have this in the red, and they don't even know it. They don't even know that their main thread is at the end of its ability. So putting a bigger graphics card in there, getting more power in your graphics card fixes nothing when you have a bottleneck, which is your main thread. So don't let people talk you into the idea that you need to have a better video card. You need to have a better video card, more random access or RAM. None of that's fixing anything until you fix your main thread. If you have this red doing anything to your computer, adding a video card, more memory, any of that stuff isn't going to help you. You have to fix the main thread. Unlike so many games in the world today, they generally rely heavily on the graphics cards and not so heavily on the CPU. But in Microsoft Flight Simulator and 2020 and 2024, they rely heavily on both. The last thing that I'll talk about is this down here. It's hard for you to see it, but this is when you get this problem with memory bleed. We've all seen it in 2024. We've all witnessed that little window come up saying memory bleed problem. Your problem is right here. The amount of VRAM you have on your video card is very important. If you've got an older video card with 8 gigs of VRAM, you're going to have a lot of memory bleed because Microsoft has not fixed the problem with the memory bleed. I can't go into detail because I don't know enough about it. I just know that they've got a problem with memory bleed, and from what I understand, memory bleed is the stockpiling of usage of memory, and it's just constantly building and building and building and building and building, inefficiently building memory. So be aware when you see these things. Your main thread, make sure that before you decide to go out and buy your brand new graphics card, you open developer, you come here, you click on debug, you go down here to display FPS, and make sure that you're not bottlenecked by your main thread. Because if you are, don't spend the money on the graphics card. Spend the money on the CPU. All right. So, third-party add-ons and FlightSim.to add-ons. Great stuff. Lots of good stuff in there. Free stuff. Lots of good stuff. But there is no magic wand that you can wave that's going to fix your hardware. If you're getting lags and stutters and things are performing poorly, do a couple things. Make sure your computer isn't getting too hot. You can download Kord-Cywg. That's a free application that runs, and you can see what your temperature of your CPU is. So right there, you can see that that I'm hovering around 85, 80, in that area, upwards of 90 at times. I'm hiccuping into 90. I'm getting close to throttling right now. And throttling, what that basically means is my CPU core speed is coming down, and it's just throttling it down so that it doesn't overheat. But get yourself this here to make sure that you're not overheating, and that's the reason why you're getting stutters and stuff. Okay. Go into your settings and make sure that when you go into your settings, that you're not overtaxing the system to the point where it's causing you problems, but you're not giving up on quality. Here's the thing I was telling you about the quality. So I could go down here and put it to ultra performance, but visually it won't look great. Okay, to me it won't look great. I can come down here and change these settings and crank them way up, and I'll get a better visual representation. Will I see enough of it for the trade-off on the lack of their performance? You see here, I got buildings, trees, plants, rocks, grass, all set to ultra. Now, I could turn these down, but I can tell you by turning these down, generally, we don't see a performance gain or really a performance loss in any way, any measurable way. We were looking at there. You know, I'm hovering around the high 80s. Oh, there I jumped into the 90s. There's 70s. I was hovering around in the 80s, and that's kind of where I'm at right now. So that really hasn't changed a lot. I guess the one thing I noticed that I'm not getting it every now and again, the stutter in here to the red. So maybe that did help. But anyways, we can look at these things here and we can turn these things down. You can look at this stuff. I found that the two most the best ways to eliminate, or not eliminate, but reduce the amount of stuttering, lagging, whatever, is to turn the train level of detail down, to turn the object level of detail down. Don't have everything on ultra, because you just don't need everything on ultra. You're not going to see enough. Now, if you've got an i9 14900K processor, 64 gigs of DDR5, 6000 hertz memory, you got a 5090 graphics card, or the other side of that, you got an AMD Ryzen 9 9850 X3D with 64 gigs of 6000 memory and a 5090 graphics card. Crank it all up. It ain't gonna matter. You're still gonna get some stutters, but crank it all up, right? But there's few of us that have those machines. Just so you know, my computer, it's a Ryzen 7 5800 X3D with 32 gigs of DDR4 memory, running 3600 megahertz, I believe, and a 4080 graphics card. That's what I've got. Okay. So just see your settings and realize where they are. And last and final thing I'll say about this, please don't spend your every waking moment. Let me bring this up before I say this. Please don't spend your every waking moment on that number right there, up there. It isn't, generally, it isn't important. What is important is, when you get stutters, does it look good? Can you see the instruments? Does the ground look good? Do the textures look good? Those are way more important than that number right there. That number there is not a representation of how good your computer necessarily is or not is not. That number has nothing to do with it. It is a benchmark, certainly, if you're getting 20 frames a second in the sky like this, and when you come down to the ground, that's going to drop. Absolutely. So it is, you can utilize this as a benchmark, but please don't use this to determine how good or how good it is not. Use your own eyes for how good or how good it is not. Use your own eyes for that. Does it look good to you? If yes, great. Use, again, your own eyes. Does it run good? Is it smooth? Are you getting screen tearing? Are you getting jitters, stutters? Or is it smooth? Is there certain places that are more problematic for you than others? For example, for me, LA is a real problematic space for me. Now I could fix that, right? I could turn some of my settings down. I could, instead of having quality, I could have performance on. I could turn some of my object level of detail down a little bit more. I could turn the trees and the rocks and the grass, all that down a little bit, turn the clouds down a little bit. I could do all of that. But I don't, and I choose not to. My simple choice is, because 90% of airports that I land at, I have zero problems. And I say 90, it's probably higher than that, but I have zero problems. There's only a very few selective airports out there that I have a problem with, and LA is one of them. So I can tweak my system so that I can have a better experience at LA, or I could just simply not go to LA anymore. And for me, and you guys do what you do, but for me, I just don't go to LA anymore. I'm just not interested in going to LA, where I have to critique my system so much so, give up so much of the fidelity, the visual representation that I get to see on a regular basis. I have to give up all of that so that I can fly in and out of LA. Not going to do it. Not going to do it. Chicago is another airport that I have a little bit of a problem. Not as bad as LA, but there I live with it. There I live with the idea that I might get the audible stutter. And I don't know why I get the stutter out of Chicago, but not flying out of Chicago, usually coming into Chicago. I get a little bit of lag sometimes. And these stutters are micro stutters into Chicago. LA, not so much micro. No. Um, so again, don't look at your frame rates as being the end-to-end all. Certainly look at frame rates, but you don't need to have 90 frame rates like what we saw here, for example. 94, 95 frame. I don't need 95 frame rates here. It isn't making my experience any better. So I just don't need it. So could I actually turn all of that stuff up a little higher, get a little better quality? I could. But to me, and this is what I encourage you guys to look at, if it looks good to you, no, none of your friends, none of your online friends are going to come into your living room and look at your computer and go, hey, that looks like junk. And even if they did, it doesn't matter. It has to look good to you. You are the one. A friend of mine, one of the simmer guys that I fly with on a regular basis, he said something to me the other day, which I found super profound, and I totally agree. Your sim has to look good to you, not to me, not to your friend, not to anybody else. Your sim has to look good to you. And if you look at it and you say, man, I love that, whether it looks like garbage to me or not, it doesn't matter. It has to look good to you. Has to function good to you. If I were a guy thinking about this, I would find a way to turn my train level of detail up a little bit, my object level of detail up a little bit, turn up some of those settings a little higher, because I don't need to have 85 frames. Now, keep in mind, as I say, that don't use this as the only thing you look at, but this is a good benchmark. When I look at this and say 90 frame rates, a friend of mine, Razor, said to me, yeah, but if it's 80 here on the ground, it's 60. Yeah, you're right. If it's 60 here on the ground, it might be 30. Are we hinging on lag area, stutters area? Yeah, it's possible. So again, I don't disagree that frame rates are important, but don't use it as your end-to-end all to decide, well, when you're flying in your group and your group says, well, I'm getting 80 frame rates, and your buddy says, well, I'm only getting 60. That's not a measure of good, bad, or otherwise. The guy who's getting 60 has his sim set up in a certain way, and it's different than the guy set up at 90. You guys have two different computers, two different, completely different monitors, setups, resolutions. One is using an HDMI, one is using a display port. All of these things matter. One has got gigabyte internet, and the other guy's got 50 megabyte internet. Now that's exaggerated on both ends potentially, but all these things are a factor of what's caused what potentially could be causing the differences. What I'm simply saying is, don't worry about what your friend's computer is doing or not doing. Don't worry about how your friend perceives his, good, bad, or otherwise. Look at your screen, and are you happy with what you're seeing? If you're not, it's your screen that needs to change, not theirs. Okay? And so frame rates, I hear so many people so caught up on frame rate, all the time, and I just it boggles my mind why we're so worried about frame rate. Shooters, if you're playing a shooting game and you're playing against somebody who's got 100 frames per second, and you're playing against a guy with 300 frames per second, potentially there is an opportunity for the guy with 300 frame rates per second versus 100 frame rates per second to be marginally better. Each time we see a guy come around the corner giving us an opportunity to shoot at that person, although we say it's milliseconds faster, but still it's faster. I see it sooner than you. And if I can react fast enough, I will be the benefactor of that. That's for shoot'ems. Flight simulation, whether you see something 3 seconds before me, 30 seconds before me or not, isn't relevant. Okay? So that talks a little bit about that. Now, let's talk about where we at. I can see I have talked us all the way through into our top of descent, which is right there. So let's pull up the thing. And let's unload and reload. I am quite famous for not being ready for my top of descent. There's a guy that will tell you that if you were to ever talk to him. He would tell you, yeah, that guy, just me, he never gets his top of descent. He screws it up every time. And he would be right. What runway am I coming in on? 31. 31. There's 31. We'll use that one. For those that aren't aware of what I'm doing, Navigraph, those that know it. I just pulled up the chart. Initial is 3,000. So we turn this down to 3,000. And the good news about the Boeing, one of the things about the Boeing that I very much like is this. I just think this is great. I set this for 3,000, and when it passes the top of descent, it just pulls the throttles back, idles back down, and starts making the descent down. As opposed to the Airbus system, I'm sure there's value in it. I think Airbus pilots might say, "Oh yeah," but that Boeing system is not good because, and vice versa. So I like the Boeing system here. Here we are coming onto top of descent right there, and you'll see as soon as we get there, we'll see the engines pull back, and we'll see it getting ready for descent. And it'll just descend on its own. Whereas the Airbus, yeah, not so much. The Airbus, you gotta dial in your altitude, and you gotta click the little button here, the little dealy whopper here that you click the little arrow, and then it'll just start descending on its own. So you can see I'm very close, less than a mile. You're going to see the engines come down here right away. See them coming down right now. Throttle's pulling back. The N1 is coming down. The fuel flow is coming down, and we're going to start descending here in a relatively big hurry here. Where there's V speed, so we are on our way down right now, 2,000 feet a minute. I also have this HUD up here that shows me all that information because I do. You see right there, there's our profile. So we're set in. For you Airbus guys who maybe don't know this, you will see on your instrument here in your altitude tape here, you'll see a little green dot. That little green dot is the same representation as what we see here. Right, if that green dot is right here, that means you're descending at the right descent rate. If that little green dot happens to get up here, then you are a little too low. If that little dot gets down here, you're a little too high. A good friend of mine said, "Chase the needle." I think that was an eye opener for me when I heard him say that, because I could never figure out. For example, if this arrow was up here, I could never figure out, did that mean I was too low or it was too high? But the minute he said chase the needle, it was really simple. If the needle's up here, well, my aircraft is down here and I'm too low of it. I need to get up there, and vice versa. So I always thought that was an interesting thing Razor taught me. Good thing about flight simulation, there's a lot of people out there that know a lot of stuff about flight simulation. So don't be afraid to get onto forums and into Discord channels and the like, and look up this information. There's just a wealth of knowledge out there in the sim community that will help you learn how to do certain things, conventionally or otherwise. Okay, so we see here, we don't see any change on here, and that's because we're only looking at our departure screen. We look at our arrival screen. That keeps on changing. I don't know why that keeps on changing. But anyways, so that is our plan. We are still waiting for ground. Okay. I'm going to keep an eye on that. I don't think on the previous version that was changing like that, because that's now twice I've toggled. Yeah, see how that changes? Every time you toggle off, it goes back. I'll have to put a little correction in that. But we can see, you know, our heading. We can see that we're not on the ground. Quite clearly, we're not on the ground. Yeah, that's in this screen. We're not looking a lot until we actually get on the ground. Okay. In this screen, it's kind of similar. We're not really looking at this a lot until we get on the ground. I'll briefly talk about this once we're on the ground and probably parked. I'll talk a little bit more about this screen a little bit. On this one here, we're starting to look at some stuff that we're seeing, you know, like the N1 is pulled back, the throttles are at 0, our fuel flow is considerably less, but we can actually see, you know, is the plane banking, is it pitching, what is the attack angle of attack, there it is. Took me a minute. So angle of attack, what is the angle of attack? You know, what is the nose pitch up or down in comparison to how the aircraft is flying? So if we look outside, the way I understand that is that the nose is pitched, in this case, the nose is pitched up 1.7 degrees. That's what that angle of attack means. One of the things that I discovered was there's angle of attack and then there's angle of attack vane. And I had this in my last video when I talked about this. I can't quite remember that. So go back to another video. There's a previous video that I did a long flight or longish flight in where I talk about that. I'll maybe try to see if I can remember what that is. But you can see that all of these bits of information are kind of changing, and they're going to be live changing, and it's all being recorded. Okay, so we'll go back in the plane. We're going to we know that we're landing, and we know that we're taxiing to gate number 2. We know that already, and we know that Gatekeeper Pro is going to show us how to get to gate 2. We also know through Gatekeeper Pro, we know that our arrival runway is 31. Okay. And we can use all kinds of other software like this. Let me see if I can figure out how to get there. I want that gone there. So there's our, you know, flight that we're following. Right. That's taking us to 3-1. Right. I haven't set an approach, so let me set the approach. York something. What did it say? 3-1? Yeah, 3-1. And PK, yeah, that's right. So there you can see that's the runway coming in, and that's 3-1. So we can use Navigraph. You know, a little rant here, not a big one. I like Navigraph. I think it's an amazing piece of software. I really, really like it. I don't like subscription. I don't like having to pay, you know, $100 a year, or in my case, $13 a month. I don't like having to pay it. I appreciate why. I get all of that. I just don't like it. And when I look at this and go, okay, so you see what this is, right? Well, oops. Nope. I will get to it. There. So I look here and tell me, is this any different? I mean, you know, is it really any different? Right? That's our runway that we're coming in. Is this any different? The charts are right here. Our approach. Wait, wrong chart. Three, 1. Any different? You know, how is this different than that? Well, one key thing that's making it different is this you've already paid for. It comes with 2024. This you continue to pay for every month. I digress. Is it any better? Some are going to say, "Oh no, Navigraph is way better." Okay, maybe it is. The only problem with this is you have to pay 12, 13, 10 a month for it, and this you don't have to. So, now I did start out by using the Navigraph charts, and so I'm going to continue using them because I already paid for it, so I might as well use it. Otherwise, it feels like a waste of money if I'm not going to use them. Why am I paying? Primarily, it's because of FSLTL. If it wasn't for FSLTL, I wouldn't be paying for Navigraph. I just wouldn't. I wouldn't use it. I would just use the built-in for free. But I want to use FSLTL, and that's another source of topic of conversation I should probably bring up. I've talked about a lot of stuff in this. I should talk about FSLTL. So if you're a single pilot flying your plane and you want to have a level of realism with ground traffic and stuff like that, you want to use some kind of live aircraft injector of sorts, right? The main one that we've used for a long time has been FSLTL. Phenomenal piece of software. It works, and it has worked, in my opinion, very well until their source, their API, their source that they were getting the information from, all of a sudden ceased to become free because, as you all know, if you don't know, FSLTL was brought to us by Fly-by-Wires. Fly-by-Wires is a non-profit, free package creator of software, and it was providing us this for free because it was getting the API, or getting the data from what I believe was Flight Radar 24, and they were either making the cost affordable for Fly-by-Wires to continue to do it, or maybe they were giving it to them as a nonprofit organization for free. I don't know. But that ceased to exist at some point, and Flight Radar said, no, you got to pay like everybody else has to pay. And the API costs would have been substantial for an organization that's nonprofit. So they had to kill the project, basically. Along came Navigraph, seeing an opportunity to enrich themselves and better the community. I want to be careful at it because it betters the community as well. And they embedded that inside of their system, and they took on those costs. But be aware that those costs are being absorbed or offset by the profit, right? So a guy like me who isn't paying $12 a month previously is now paying $12 a month because I want to use FSLTL. So they're benefiting it from it just the same. Anyways, so now let's talk about the alternative. The 2020 built-in live traffic injector, I was kind of found weird, less reliable maybe. But the 2024 version of live traffic is pretty good. I'm given to understand they get their live traffic through FlightAware, not Flight Radar 24. Having said that, FlightAware's traffic is reportedly, true or not, don't know, but reportedly a little bit behind Flight Radar. So what you might see in Flight Radar, you might not see it in FlightAware for 30 seconds, a minute, whatever later. So it's not perfect. Okay. Now, where that would be important is if you and your buddies, 2, 3, 4, 5 of your buddies get ready to take off, and everybody's saying, "Hey, do you see that FedEx flight there lining up ready to take off, or do you see all those planes taxiing down the runway or taxiing down the taxiways?" Well, the reality is neither FSLTL nor Microsoft Flight Simulator's traffic injector actually does that. We don't see the same stuff. If you're next time flying with your buddy, pay attention to it. Ask your buddy when you're looking at your windscreen and you're seeing a Delta taxiing in front of you. Ask your buddy if he sees that. Odds are he's going to say no. And that is because that traffic is being sent to us incrementally, but it's not a live source. We're not streaming that to us. We're going out to the server, collecting the data, and being given to us. If your buddy comes online first and he starts getting his data, and you come online 30 seconds later, you're going to get a different set of data. And that different set of data is never going to catch up to one another. It's always going to be 30 seconds, a minute, 5 minutes, 7 minutes, 12 minutes apart. So you can never rely on getting the data accurately for you, your buddy, and your other buddy. So it is only for what you see out the cockpit. Having said all of that, then do you need to have FSLTL, even though it comes to you a little quicker than FlightAware? In my opinion, you don't. Because what are you comparing it to? What is the comparison? Do you sit there on Flight Radar 24 and watch it and go, oh yeah, I see that plane. Oh yeah, I see. And by the way, FSLTL still does not give you the same planes as you see on Flight Radar all the time. Live flight injection is really good, and it adds to the immersion of what we're doing. But rest assured that there are systems out there that are built into 2024 that do, in my opinion, equally a good job. The one thing that's different that I wish 2024 would do, when you use FSLTL flight injection, you don't see all their tags. All the other aircraft's tags, you just don't see them. Whereas when you do the flight injection for flight sims, 2024 flight sims flight injection, you do. Have I gone off course? I think I've gone off course here, gentlemen, women, ladies. I have. Look at this. We'll get ourselves back on the course here in a minute. I had an unfortunate set of circumstances take place here. I didn't see that discontinuity. And we'll get ourselves back on the course here. Okay, so yeah, so flight injection, although I think it adds to that immersion, I think it's really, really good. But guys, please don't talk yourselves into having to pay for a Navigraph subscription, because you have to use FSLTL's live flight injection, because it's the only one that actually works, and it just isn't true. I will probably do a video sometime in the coming days, weeks, or whatever, kind of showing the two differences and the trade-offs amongst those two differences. I'll try to find a way to do that a little more accurately than what I've just discussed today. But just know that I've done this with a good friend of mine, him using FSL LTL or whatever, and me using 2024's flight injection live traffic, comparing it and not seeing the same thing, and him saying, well, that's because you're not using FSLTL and FSLTL is better. Me then switching to FSLTL saying, okay, let's look at that, and still not seeing the same traffic. So what is the explanation? Well, the explanation is exactly what I said earlier, and that is you are getting that traffic injected to your sim based on the time in which you logged in and began that file or that data being pulled to your computer. Understand, this isn't you're not streaming it. You're not getting it from one dedicated source that everybody is getting it from that dedicated source and streaming that dedicated set of data. The data exists on the server and is being updated every second, every 30 seconds, every 10 minutes, whatever the time frame is. And when you log in and you start pulling that data, you then get that data every 30 seconds, 10 seconds, 2 seconds, whatever their data interval is, you get that data from that server. When I log in 5 minutes later, I too will start getting that data every 30 seconds thereafter the fact, but we will not have synced data. The only way to sync that data is if they had a server that possessed the data and we were streaming that information from that server to our computers, then we would get the same data. But FSLTL Now, Navigraph's FSLTL doesn't do that. Microsoft Flight Simulator's injected traffic data doesn't do that either. You go to a server and get the data, and it's not synced from one person to the next. All right, let's start getting ready for our arrivals, shall we? Razor, I didn't miss my top of descent, by the way. If you see this, just know I didn't miss my top of descent. So I don't do it every time. Okay. This is kind of where I start. I don't watch this, entirely every time, but I kind of come here to start looking at, okay, what am I doing? What's happening here? Okay, I'm coming on runway 31, blah, blah, blah. I could, as I said before, I could pull this up. Whoops. I could pull this up, I could look at the airport itself and kind of help me understand, what's happening, because Navigraph doesn't necessarily do as good a job. Oh, it actually does a pretty decent job. I take that back. This is actually pretty good. The built-in one does the same. I was just going to criticize this a little bit, but it's not worth criticizing. It's pretty good. So we can see right here, this is gate 2. That's where I'm going, right? This is the runway I'm coming on. So I'm going to start planning here. I'm going to start planning, where am I turning off? I'm going to let it roll and probably, well, in a perfect world, I would turn off on Kilo. That's where I'm going to try to turn off on. Alpha is another place, or, the final one is go right to the end. But I'm going to try to turn off on Kilo, which then tells me, hey, I'm going to, use about 70% of the runway. 65, 70% of the runway. I have to start thinking about, what kind of braking am I going to use? The runway, I believe, is like 8,000. I should check that. Let me look at the runway. 8,800. So it's a lot of runway. So let's say hit the auto brakes at 3. I wanna make sure that I'm stopped for sure. I probably won't use full reverse. Incidentally, when you're using your reversers and you hit your reverse button and or whatever, you don't have to immediately go full reverse, right? You don't have to push those throttles into full reverse each time. You can, but you don't have to. Some airlines will have their pilots use idle reverse, right? Use all the runway, get it to the end, because keep in mind, if you're full reverse, you're using a lot more fuel than you are, let's say, if you're not full reverse. Just, it's an opinion. If I'm wrong, comment section, go ahead, tell me that. So I'm happy to hear that I'm wrong just the same. Okay, let's look at our applications here quickly, just one more time, and let's just make sure we got everything and we know what we're doing. We can see our flight data recorder is recording, it's capturing, N1s are good, fuel flow is good, throttle positioning is good. This is all controlled by autopilot, so we don't have to worry about that. We know that our flight logger is logging our traffic, and it's going to give us a total hours that we fly, that we had flown on this particular flight. We're going to see in the dashboard a more detailed view of this later once we get on ground. I'll explain that. So that's good. Let me pull this over here. And we are set for gate 2, so we're good. Let's get this all out of the way. So we're holding 7,000. If we look down here, we're holding 7,000 at, that's interesting. We're at 7,000, and we should now be at 7,000. We should still be at 27,000 feet. That's weird. I wonder why they did that. Oh, I had my little hiccup there. That's probably the reasoning behind that. Yeah. I think we came down too soon, to be honest with you. I really do. Let me, yeah, I mean, I'm still 180 miles out. No, wait a minute. Am I reading that wrong? That's, what is that? Estimated time of arrival. ALT. What is AL? I mean, I want to say that's altitude, but it isn't. Of course, not. Um, what's the distance to the airport? Well, we saw the top of descent showing to us. What has gone wrong here? Why? So we should not have descended like we did. It's just no other way around it. We shouldn't have. That doesn't matter. We're going to be good. We're going to fly pretty low for the next 100 miles. I can see. Here's another softer little nav map, so I can see clearly. There's the little yellow plane. That's me, and I can see there is the reported top of descent when I should have hit top of descent. I don't know. I mean, I set it for 3,000. It crossed top of descent and started coming down. But I don't know why the sim suggested top of descent was, way back here. So that's probably where it started coming down. Instead of, over here, some, like this actually doesn't seem right either. 55, 75, 80, about 80 miles out from 3.6. That doesn't seem right, but whatever. We'll just let it keep on coming. Okay. All right. We're on our way in, 7,000. I want to look at, yeah, so we got the noses up quite a ways at 230 knots, see? Well, yeah, I mean, 230 is okay. That speed is okay. I think, I don't know. I don't know why. It's the first time that now I did screw it up, I guess. I did have that discontinuity down here that I wasn't paying attention to, and did that mess things up. It's probably the main culprit why it was messed up and why we're experiencing some of the difficulties that we have now. I'm not overly concerned about it. We will be perfectly fine at 7,000. Now, does it show me another top of descent here? Yeah, see, that's interesting. It doesn't. It showed us the top of descent, the original top of descent, which was way back there. But we are still, probably 150 miles out, and maybe we should have started descending now, but not back there where we were likely closer to 250, 270 miles out. Doesn't seem right, but whatever. We will endeavor to carry on. Getting the throttle moving back and forth quite a bit. I think it's because of this altitude. This we're holding an altitude of 7,000, and we'll do that. We'll just keep holding that altitude all the way in until we get to NORAC. Once we hit NORAC and we start to turn, no, we'll probably let's go look at what is the design altitude at NORAC. 11,000 feet. So just at the turn for final is above 3,000. So we'll change this here shortly. Right here, that's reportedly to be below. We have to be below 11,000 feet here, and then right here we have to be above 3,000. Which, given our circumstances, we're going to achieve both of those without issue. Well, I think I'm going to take a quick pause here and get a glass of water and get ready for our arrival. I will be back. All right, all right, all right, all right, all right. Let's do this. Dork. Yes, I am a dork. Anyways, doesn't matter. So I have a kind of a set way on how I try to do an approach, do everything that I do. I don't follow necessarily conventional briefings, but I have an unconventional briefing, and I usually talk it through quite a bit just to make sure I know what I'm doing, and this is where it's somewhat conventional because pilots, this is what they do, is they kind of talk it through. So I'm going to kind of start doing some of that. You might find that a little weird, but you'll understand why I do what I do, because that's why I'm doing it. So runway 31, we're coming in on runway 31. We got a runway that's 8,600-ish feet, so we got lots of room for the runway. With 737, we got tons of room on the runway. As I said before, we're going to probably turn off on Kilo, but we may end up going to Papa. But we're going to attempt for Kilo. We'll turn off the runway, and when we turn off the runway, we'll stop, clean the aircraft up, get an APU up and running, flaps and all that, get all that configured, ready for taxi. On the arrival part, I will, somewhere around NORAD, I'll probably turn my altitude down to 3,000, which was the initial altitude height that I needed to be at. And I'll probably let the aircraft come down. The plan is to not do an auto land. The plan is to land the aircraft myself. Let's just take a quick peek at what is the frequency. 110.3. So 110.3. I don't know if that's programmed in the radios already. I can't remember every aircraft that I fly. I see it isn't, so let me get 110.3 in there. I have a radio channel or whatever you want to call this. So that's why you're seeing me not come down here and type it in. But you can see it's now targeted as 110.3. So frequency is set. I'll land full flaps. Speed brake will arm. And I will land it with full flaps. Let's brief the weather just ever so slightly so we know what we got in terms of weather. What do we got? We've got winds 250, 14 knots, 15 statute mile, Visibility, overcast 2600, overcast 5600, temperature 21, dew point 16, altimeter 2967. The density, altitude, variation, whatever you call it, is 2,000 feet. Runway is 8,800 feet. Runway's altitude, runway heading is 315. Uh, 28 speed. I'm going to dial this down to my 3,000 now so we don't miss this. I don't think I'm going to have a problem with it, but I'm going to dial it down anyways. So we have pretty much a straight shot in. Like we got a little twisty thing that we do just up here, right? But it's pretty manageable. Like I said before, I will not do an auto land. I will land the plane myself. Full flaps again, like I said. Touchdown, we will use reversers, but we won't use full reverser. So I'll be just above idle reverse. 50% or something like that, but I won't use full reverse because I won't need it. And turnoffs will be, as I said before, turnoffs. Ideally, the turnoff will be kilo, but if not kilo, maybe alpha, and the last final one is papa. But I will aim for kilo. Turn off the runway, and we will, at the threshold there, we will do everything that we need to do. We need to make sure that we turn off to the right. This is another thing that I generally do. I want to get myself organized. When I'm turning off, which way am I looking? Right or left off the runway? So it will be a right turn off the runway. That kind of concludes my briefing method. I do all of this again, like I said before, I do this so that I kind of get it in my head. What is my plan? Go around, should we need one? I should discuss that a little bit and get that in my head. So go around, should we need one? We'll just throttle up, gear up, flaps up, blah blah blah. We'll get up to summers in that 4,000 altitude range, that area, and when we're a sufficient distance away from the runway, or from the airport, I should say, we'll turn left and we'll do a left pattern around the airport to pick up the ILS and come back in again. I don't anticipate a go around, but if there is a go around, that is the go around that we'll use. I'll show you why I do that go around. Now there is a more controlled go around that you can follow the actual go around, but I won't. I'll use a heading hold and go. You'll see that I'm going to come in on 135 or 315. I have that heading set like that so that if I do decide to go around, it's mash the throttle, gear comes back up, flaps start coming back up, hit heading hold, hit the autopilot, and go. And you'll see that I'm going to do this turn out this way and come around as opposed to this turnaround because of how the airport and where the runway is and how I plan to pick it up. Yeah, I could do a right turn off and come this way and come back and around, but my plan is to do a left turn out and come back and come around. Okay, so now we've debriefed that. We know what our go around is. We know what our plan is. We know that we're going to be coming down to 3,000 here shortly. So summer's around 25 miles out. I'll check for VOR. VOR. That's not VOR. It's VLOC. Yeah, localizer. Duh. There it is. That's what I meant. I don't know why I said VOR. I'll check for localizer. We'll get localizer locked in, and then we will out for outer approach to get ourselves lined up with the runway. Summer's in the neighborhood of 5 miles before the threshold. Summer's in that area once the aircraft is stabilized, right? Flaps are out, gear is out, stabilized, my descent rate is stabilized, everything is good. Autopilot will come off, we'll turn the alarm off, and we will fly the aircraft in the rest of the way ourselves. That's the debrief, as it were. So we kind of know what we're going to do. Will we follow it exactly everything I said? Well, I hope so, but there's no guarantee. Okay, it's all but the flying business now. Reset the altimeter. For those that don't know, I have the letter B on my keyboard assigned for the altimeter. Why? I think it was a preset in 2020 at some point, and that's the key that I use. But you don't have to. I mean, you can actually set the altimeter here yourself. Oh, I need to realize I'm flying a Boeing, and come to my approach. So my approach speed for the threshold for the runway is full flaps 40 at 135. So now, whoops, now I gotta get this cleared away. Be aware that to me, that's a suggestion. Understand we are going to have wind coming off of from 250, and we're landing on 31. So, you know, we've got 250 over here. I'm doing it, man, you can't see it, but over here, and I'm coming in here. So I'm getting a bit of a quartering wind, but I am getting some wind. And if I remember correctly, the knot was 14 knot wind or something like that. Go check that to make sure. Whether, yeah, it's 14 knot wind. So if I was getting a direct face on runway wind of 14 knots, and there told me 135, I would probably not come in any slower than 145. That would be probably my speed, because of that speed coming in. I want to be a little quicker because of the headwind. And there's my good friend Razor has explained this to me, and it slips my mind the rationalization behind it. But that's what I would do. Here you can see, we can see here. Whoops, we can see here. I'm pretty low in comparison, and we knew that right coming in, but that's okay. There's the diamond, and I'm down here, right? So I'm low. That's okay. It will catch the glide slope, and that's kind of all we're trying to do is catch the glide slope and bring it in. All right. We have, what do we got now? We've got 100 miles. We're 100 miles out. To me, this is kind of where we should have started our top of descent. I gotta figure that out. I gotta figure out exactly why that happened, why that went so wrong. Because it's weird that it did that. But yeah. Now, incidentally, if we look at this, there's our little plane, kind of still following our route. The flashing you're seeing is because it is updating itself every second. When this actually does come out, I won't have it do this every second, but what it's trying to do is it's trying to update the route every second, and it looks, that's that flash is that the map is updating itself every second. I'll probably not have that happen, but not any more frequent than every 5 or 10 seconds. So that flashing may not be quite as evident. I just have had, oh yeah, okay. Okay. All right. Now this is where it did tell us we had some weather at around slight overcast. We got a lot of weather. This is not the weather briefing that I remember looking at. What did it tell us? Overcast 2600, overcast 5600, and well, we are at 6,800 feet. So I guess, yeah, okay. We're adding a little bit of distance time to this flight because of how we've come down, but you sent me a Msfs. Yeah. Plenty of fuel. So we should have lots to go around. The weather is such that we don't need to deal with an alternate, but the alternate is CYXE. But we don't need to deal with that alternate. That alternate is some 300 nautical miles away, and we're not going to go to that one. And we don't need to go to an alternate. The weather isn't going to, prevent us from landing. So near as I can tell, our 3,000 set that we have there right now will stay there, and the aircraft won't start coming down likely until this does that. I think that's how that works. I'll have to keep an eye on it. And again, I think this weird stuff is not, please don't take it as if it's something wrong with the plane. Because I've flown this plane a lot, never had this problem before. But the pilot, me, I had a discontinuity in there, and I didn't see that, and because I didn't see that, I kind of buggered it up a little bit. But we're back on track, and yeah, everything should be coming in here right away, into the booming metropolis of Winnipeg, Manitoba. Anybody who's been there will realize it's not a booming metropolis. It's my version of funny. But this is what we got out here. A bunch of prairie and agricultural farmland and so forth. I believe we are still in the U.S. I think we are. Let me look at this here ever so slightly. I should know this better. Street map. No, we just crossed over into Manitoba from Minnesota. Yeah, we are in Manitoba already. Okay. Yeah. Okay. So this body of water right there, that's Whitemouth Lake. Great fishing in there, by the way. I am from this area. That's why I know that. For those that don't know that, this is the part of the world I call home. Still not so agricultural here. I mean, we do have some. You can see there are some fields and whatnot, but this is not necessarily the big agricultural part of Manitoba. It's a huge landmass, but as we get a little closer to Winnipeg, we're going to start to see more and more fields and stuff like that. There's a lot of lumber and paper mill lumbering that happens in here. Okay. And we just keep on keeping on. According to the little nav map, we are coming on where top of descent actually should have been. Again, I said several times, yeah, I don't know. It is what it is. Oh, one other thing I've been trying to do is I've been trying to add this to my, wait a minute, this to my looking. I want to look at, what are my flap limits and stuff like that. And I don't know. Now I'm looking at this. What does this mean? So one is 250, I guess 250 knots. So at 250, you can have one notch out. 250, you can have two notch out, five notch out at 250, 166 at full. So 15 at 200, 25 at 190, 175, and that's kind of weird, I think. So this is in order. Oh, I guess it goes chook, 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 and then chook, chook, chook. Yeah, but what happened to 10? Okay. So in theory, the speed in which we're doing, I really could have one notch of flaps out if if I wanted to. I wonder, is this for those that will see this after the fact? Um, is this ground speed? Is this indicated? Because indicated suggests that I could have five notch of flaps out if I really wanted to. Um, But indicated, well, now I could still have five notch of flaps out, I guess. Some 240, 230. Yeah, don't know. Don't know. One day I'll understand that, but not today. I'm going to keep a close eye on this thing here to make sure that I start coming down at the appropriate time. Because the last thing I want to do is forget about it and be at 6,800 feet above the airport. I would very much want to land a plane and do a good job and whatnot. Both for the video, of course, but also for my own ego. I like to do a good job of landing or crashing, whichever the case might be. I've put a few around the world. When I say I put a few, I mean I've crashed a few planes around the world in the sim. More than a few. Razor will attest to that, I'm sure. By the way, Razor is a good friend of mine that we fly together a lot, so you'll hear me talk about him quite a bit. Him and Boeing and Tom Catter, guys that we fly with, and Grumpy and all the other guys, Art and such, Stevie. There's more. I can't list them all. I can't remember them all. But all right, let's stop our mumbling. So just as we're coming in, just as a side note, I've been thinking about my. Let me get this up here. I've been thinking about my flight recorder, and to add a level of maybe realism in here, I've been thinking about having a voice recorder that maybe works in conjunction with this, that a person might be able to record. And of course there's a lot, we're all flying a simulator and we're talking with our friends and we're talking to chat and we're doing all that kind of stuff, so I get that that flight recorder might be a little weird, but I've been thinking about adding it in just the same, because when the crash happens, analysts will analyze the flight data recorder. They'll analyze the voice recorder, and through those bits of analyzing and speaking to the pilots, they'll figure out what happened. Who's that calling me? All right. Yeah, wrong number. Anyways, so I've been thinking about doing a voice recorder. Give me your thoughts in the comment section if that's something you think that could be or should be added to this. Certainly we would need to have a button there that we could maybe, not enable until certain intervals, or we could just turn it on live all the time and it just captures all of the sounds like any flight recorder would. Flight voice recorder would. Give me your comments in the comment section. What's your thoughts about that? Is it something that we should put in here? By the way, this flight recorder is released. It is on Sim Market right now. Gatekeeper Pro and Flight Log are not released on Sim Market yet, but Flight log will be released this week. This week meaning the first week of July. It will be released this week, barring an unforeseen circumstance, but it will be released. Gatekeeper Pro, I want to make it. There's a few adjustments that still need to be made on it. One of them is like I said, like you saw when we set the gate here. We should be able to set the gate and then toggle, back and forth if we want to, and the gate should hold, and it isn't. So I want that to be a thing. I want that gate to be held. That's the gate I want to go to, and I don't want that to be lost. So that's a thing that I'll need to make a change. And there's a couple other house cleaning things that I want to change on here. Like, for example, I can see right now it says version 11 here and version 13 up there. So that needs to be fixed, because this is version 13. So version 11, you guys won't see this, but version 11, we only utilized a collection of data via Flight Sim 2020. And we weren't using the mapping data from 2024. Version 13 now maps whether or not you're flying 2020 or 2024. It maps the appropriate data. Although that data is very close to one another, it almost doesn't make any sense to do it. But it was done in tune with making sure that we can, say, hey, this is compatible, not just compatible, but it's intended for 2020 and 2024. Not that it's just compatible, right? I wanted it to be specifically for 2020 and 2024, and so that's why the change between 11 and 13. Where did 12 go? Well, 12 just didn't work out. So, anyways, that's what happened to 12. Okay. Back in the plane, enough of the yammering. We are getting painfully close to actually having to do some, flying and piloting things. Winnipeg, over there somewhere, can't see it through the clouds yet, but we do know that our ceiling, we had some clouds at around 2,600 feet. Did I figure out, I was talking about it, but can I figure out what my runway altitude was? Where's my chart? Chart 3-1. Yeah, 780 feet ish. TDZE. I think that's there's some meaning behind that thing, but I think that's the touchdown zone elevation, and that is 777 feet. So, yeah. Still got a fair bit of bush down there. I don't know what that little schmutz of water down there would be. Yeah, what is that? I know this area quite well, so I guess maybe it's not 100% accurate. Anyways, yeah, the clouds aren't terrible. Mind you, when you look inside the plane, I mean, you can see ground and so forth. Look at the cloud up there. Just so you know, when I fly, I generally fly live weather, live time. So we are coming in here. It is 10 to 5 p.m. right now. July 1st is the time and date of this flight. Should look up, if I can, the star. Okay. Yeah, so like this one and Microsoft 24's version of the chart, they give us this, right? So they're saying here, I'm not sure why. Oh, I guess 2 different runways. So if we're going to 13 and we got to be below 14,000, If we're going to 31, which we are, we got to be below 11,000. That line, by the way, is below or above right here. So you can see above 3,000, right? Here it's, you got to be at 6,000, not above or not below. That's kind of what those lines indicate. My friend Razor taught me that. He learned me something. So yeah, so we're gonna be above 3,000 here. Yeah, okay. And you'll note that throughout the video, those that watch this whole thing in its entirety, appreciate you for doing so. If you do watch the whole thing in its entirety, it is a lot of wind for maybe not a lot of information. Don't know. But I talk through this stuff a lot, and I'm doing this for the video as well, but mostly I'm doing it for me to keep myself fresh in my mind, what I'm going to do, how I'm going to do it, what's the plan, you know, should this happen, should that happen, what am I doing? And I'm looking at this stuff constantly, you know, my approach and the weather and all that stuff, because, well, I have such a shitty memory, I can't remember anything. So all right, we're turning at NORAD right now. NORAC, not RAD, AC. So we're turning there, and we're getting onto a heading of 273 ish, and that's our track that we're going to be using. See that's our track we're going to be using to intercept here. We're going to check localizer. Yeah, localizer is alive. Well, it's on. Whether it's alive yet? Oh yeah, it's alive right there. Does that mean it's alive? Maybe that doesn't mean that it's alive. It just means it's turned on. We are still here. I got a little bit of traffic off the side there, but he won't get in our way in any way. I'm going to come down here and make sure TCAST. That's what I'm trying to say. I'm going to make sure TCAST is off. One of the issues that I'm struggling with is when I come in with TCAST on and I can't control that live flight cutting in front of me or flying a little faster than me and flies through me and all that stuff. And so when that happens, TCAST takes over and does all kinds of stupid stuff, which I don't care for. So I generally will turn that off. Okay, that's been set. Now I know that 135 was the speed which I said I was planning on touching down on. So yeah, 135. So 145 is the touchdown speed. I am probably, what am I? 34 knots away. And we're still at 240 right now. What you're going to see me do here shortly is you're going to see me click this button right here, and I'm going to take over the management of the speed myself and slow the aircraft down. So generally, like I said before, I'll land the plane myself. I'll put it on the ground by myself. You notice that we're coming down now here. See that? And we're starting to descend right there. Coming down. Again, throttle's pulled back. Fuel flow is minimal. Throttles are set to 5%. So we got a little bit of throttle on, but not a lot. And like I said, we're gonna turn here shortly. We're gonna be probably about 15 miles out when we turn. Oh, that's wind. Our distance is 17. Sorry, we're gonna be about 15 miles out when we turn in. And so I'm probably gonna, at that point, I'm gonna start considering flaps and all that kind of stuff. Gear. Let's try to remember 1,500 feet above ground. So 1,500 feet above ground, 700. Let's call it 815 is 2,300 feet. When we reach 2,300 feet, we're going to drop the flaps or drop the gear. So I am going to take over speed now. May have been a little late on that. And let's not forget we got speed brake out. I'm going to aim for 190 here. My plan is to hopefully be at that 190 on the turn. I won't be, but that was my plan, is to be 190 on the turn. I'll be close to 190 on the turn. So we see flaps are up here, and down here it suggests we should have at least one notch of flaps out. If it's not up, then at least one should be down. That's what I've been doing, and anybody in the comment section will put down there, if I'm doing this wrong, tell me what I'm doing wrong about it, because I would very much like to know. I had set that at 190, did I not? Remember, at Summers around 2,300 feet here. We'll set that. Let's redo that. And let's go in the overhead and make sure we got all of the important business on. There's the runway coming down. I don't know what that oscillation is. Gear down. According to that, I've got the gear down right, as it said 1,500 feet above ground, and I got it probably a little late, but I was pretty close. So I'm going to let the plane come in around this 160 knots, slowly incrementing the flaps down. According to that, we're low. Take over. Yeah, we're low. Flaps are full. A little low, but we're not in bad shape. We are a little low, but we can easily get this brought back in. That's not going to be a problem. We do have some weather that's kicking us around here. Well, This is far from my best landing, I can tell you that right now. I don't know if it's the wind that's doing this, or... I think it's kind of bouncing. Approaching the humps. 50, 40, 30, 20, 10. So we'll definitely make kilo, which is right here. Oh, there's the problem. I told myself not to forget that, and I did it anyways. Speed brake was out. It's all right. Forgot the speed brake. Shoot. Okay, so we are here. We'll just get the plane set here and we'll get it cleaned up. So we see notice that the taxi route, see where the taxi route was, okay? But because we turned off here, we'll do that, and now we get a new taxi route. Now, I don't know what makes, yeah, see, that's not right. It's not putting this on the gate. Yeah, see, that's why we test this. The version 11 brings us to the gate. This one takes us to right to the runway again. So we got some corrections here to do. Let's close that off and let's hence the reason why this isn't released yet. Because my version 11 was working properly. This version, not so much. So this is my version 11. You can see it's 11.11. We'll connect this in, and okay, and now we say we want to go to there, and you see how it actually sends you to the right parking spot. If we come in here, same thing. We come in here. We don't have any gates other than gate 2, but this is functioning right. So my version 13 is needing work. It's needing work, and if you notice here, I set to gate 2, and if I go here and go here, it's still on gate 2. It doesn't change. So we'll make those corrections. But you're seeing the application in development, and the previous version, the newest version is missing this element. This version is showing you the exact taxi route that we need to get to gate 2. And we could pick, for example, we could pick that parking and refresh it, and it would then take us and taxi us to parking 10. Where's parking 10? Oh, that 2 didn't actually work. Oh, but that's because of what I did. The system thinks I'm taking off again. Yeah, that's what it does. Yeah, I'm pretty sure that's what it thinks. Yeah, see that it thinks I'm ready to take off. There's 2, gate 2. Okay, so I'm going to just quickly taxi to gate 2 and shut down, and then we're going to have a quick little brief about, where where we're at and what this is all about, and you know, all these important things. That flaps up. Trim it out a little bit better. We don't need to have that much trim out. Okay, while we're taxing here, let's bring this up. So this is a part of flight log telling us what the landing rate was, 92, which is pretty good. The flight log that we'll talk about here is, there's the flight log. And so we see on the dashboard, we see the flight that we flew. There's the total flight. This is what we flew. You know, relative information. Total flight was hour and 56 minutes. You know, your max speed was, your max altitude was, your landing rate was, and so forth and so forth. That's in general what this is for. We saw the there. We'll see ourselves how this works once we get to the gate, just up here. In fact, it doesn't matter. We know that the gate is what the gate is, so we'll just park right here. Okay. So let's not hit the pole. Well, it's too late. I guess let's hit the pole. Okay. So what we want to quickly just briefly talk about is this. We had a conversation about this. We should have parked there, but we parked here, and that's okay. We know that there's some adjustments here that needs to be made on this. But this, let's talk about this just briefly, and then we'll wrap up the video and call it a day. So when we land and when we shut down, we're going to do just that. We're going to shut down. We got the APU running. We're just going to shut the engines off. And we see that the engines are coming off, fuel flow is gone, throttle is gone, and effectively the flight is gone off with a hitch. We've had no problems, but had we had problems. So now we stop the recording. This tells us that it creates a file for us. If we go to the playback and we load the flight, here's the flight that we just did right here. And you see that 2-hour flight was 1.1 meg or 1100 kilobits. It's very small. It'll take an enormous amount of flights for this to actually tally up to anything. But you can see now the entirety of everything is loaded in here, right? As I showed you before, all of the data is here. And so you can filter through all of this data second by second all the way through, okay? But what I'm interested in is the analyzing, right? So again, flaps extended above the speed. I made a mistake on my flaps. And this seems to be a constant for me. Gear up, 1,700 feet. I don't know. I don't know if that was true. But I'll tell you, I normally have 4 or 5 things in here. I didn't. But lower gear by 1,500 AGL. I did lower the gear by 1,500. Now, did I do it too soon? Maybe. Reduce speed for selected next flap, and that's what it's telling me here. So you can see it's given us an analyze of the flight. We can save. These are all the flights that I've done so far. We can save that PDF, and that PDF can be shared amongst our friends. All right. This concludes our flight from Chicago to Winnipeg. that is the entirety of the flight. I will clean this up later. We don't need to finish it up here. If you have any questions in the comment section, that's the place to put it. If you have any additions that you think should be added, you can, in the comment section, you'll find the Discord channel. You can go to the Discord channel, jump into the appropriate channel, whether it be Flight Logger, whether it's Flight Recorder, Gatekeeper Pro, or any of the other systems we have out. Jump into the appropriate channel, put your notes, your comments, whatever in there. Please keep it kind. Language won't be tolerated of any sort. Cursing and swearing, I don't accept cursing and swearing. So if that's your genre, if that's how you do the communication, then I'd rather you not. But if you want to, go ahead and put it in there. But like I said, I don't accept language. I have grandkids, and I don't want them to read that kind of garbage. Anyways, I don't have that in my life. Anyways, but go ahead, put that in there. Put your comments, your ideas, your opinions, your thoughts. Please comment on the idea of the voice recorder as opposed to the data recorder. If it's something that you think would add both to helping a flying as well as you know, a feeling of realism, because it's something I'm pretty sure we can add in. I think that's it. For those that did watch the stream, I appreciate you all. For those that are going to watch it into the future, I appreciate you guys all. I don't often do this, but like, comment, subscribe, all those wonderful things. Should you decide to do that, that's great. If you have a comment, negative or positive, I'm happy to see it. You know, putting the little thumb up or the thumb down, either one, I'm happy to see. This is not about me creating a channel for monetization and that kind of stuff. This is more about your forum where you can tell me good, bad, or otherwise. All right. Until the next one, this is Raymond for Stream Gamers in conjunction with Canuck Air Simulations. You guys have yourself a wonderful day or evening. Bye-bye now.